Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Will. Welcome to my channel. Today, we will be doing a book review called Becoming Jacob by Matt Cook of Sabbath Lounge right after this. All right, what is up, guys? I have Matt Cook, I have Digital Pastor Jim, and I have Joy with me today as we go over this book. So real quick, I'll just have everyone introduce themselves. And of course, I have manners. So ladies first.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Joy Brock on TikTok. And I also have a YouTube channel, which Will brought up. It's called Python Learning. If anybody's interested in it, it's about programming and computers.
All right. Thank you for that. Next guy we got is Digital Pastor Jim.
Hey, I'm calling here from my wife just called me for a second. So I'm here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains. And I'm excited. I met Matt through TikTok primarily. We did an interview, and so I'm excited. Reading his book is really exciting. I'm looking forward to reviewing it.
Awesome. And then obviously the man of the hour, Matt. Dude, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great. So I'm Matt Cook, and I've recently wrote a book. That's why we're here today, called Becoming Jacob, and I am the co-host of Sabbath Lounge with my buddy Jake.
All right. And guys, if you want, go on to Sabbath Lounge. They have a bunch of interviews. They go over Torah portions. They really distinguish what the Bible is actually really trying to say. And the interviews, the interviews are okay, Matt. There's one in particular with this guy, Will Walkie. That's probably your best one. It is a fantastic interview. It's so good. There's this other one with some other girl and some guy with a white beard, like a thinner Santa. It's
Yeah.
No, but yeah, guys, please check out Sabbath Lounge on TikTok and on YouTube. So I'm going to pull this up real quick. So if everyone watching, this is the book right here. Becoming Jacob by Matt right here. This is available on the Matt. This is on Sabbath Lounge website, correct?
Yes, it's a link to purchase the book. But right now, if you just Google Matt Cook Becoming Jacob, it should pop up in multiple places. It's in Barnes and Noble, Amazon. I've seen it on eBay. It's kind of all over. As time goes, it'll kind of populate in more and more places. But
right, I absolutely, I love it. Do you want to talk about the cover real quick?
yeah, this is me in Lubbock, Texas. Growing up, this is when I lived with what I called Papa Bill, and we raised goats, and I milked these goats. And
Are you on the right or the left of that picture?
Yeah, I know, it's kind of hard to tell. So but yeah, that's me. And when I was young, I would get in the pen with those goats about that age and headbutt them. So I wasn't the smartest child.
But I mean, they told you to use your head though in school, right? So you were just doing what they taught you.
That's right. That's
right.
So, but I was an outdoor kid. I was outside all the time playing in dirt, kind of a farm kid. And and then my two sons helped me with the cover, and that's why they get a credit on the book for that too.
Right. I absolutely love it. So now it's really cool. And this is no way me hating on Christians in any way, shape, or form. But I feel like a lot of people don't have a really good understanding of the Genesis account. So I really appreciate the whole title of Becoming Jacob, what that really means. Because a lot of people don't understand the conflict between Esau and Jacob, right? I feel like a lot of them know the story, how they were both in the womb, they came out, he sold the birthright, but that's it. you know. So this title, I think it does a really good job where when you read this, it almost kind of forces you to, hey, you know what is the story of Jacob? It puts people to go back to Genesis and to read that account, because a lot of people miss it. I feel like I talked to a lot of people, and what happened when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, right? Oh, well, there's two cherubs and a flaming sword. A lot of people don't know that. Or that, what about Jacob's other kid, Dinah? You know, a lot of people don't know that. So I feel like going back to the Torah to read through, really get a good understanding of Esau and Jacob. And you do a really good job kind of talking about that too. So you were very kind enough to send me, Jim, and Joy early copies of the book, and I appreciate it. I don't have a hardcover, which I'm very sad that you didn't send me a hardcover, because Matt, I don't know if you know this or not, I like books.
Yeah.
This is not a green screen. It's not a green screen. It's not. It's all real.
That's a lot of books.
So, but I definitely will be ordering, getting a hardcover. But do you want to talk a little bit? Go talk about the book a little bit, and then Jim, Joy, if you guys have questions, chime in too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I have a
think,
list.
Oh, good.
oh, okay, that's a little short, but
I think the place to start is, the beginning. And back in 2006, I was teaching school, and I had this troubled childhood, and I felt the prompting. I was a school teacher, and I had the summer off, and so that summer, I remember sitting in the living room or the kitchen with my laptop, and I started writing the book. And as I started writing, I would encounter these people and these chapters and these things in my life, and I would go research them and start tracking them down. And a lot of times I would have conversations with people that I probably needed to have conversations with and kind of make peace in my mind. And so it was kind of this therapy that I started. And I had written all this down. I had like 300 something pages, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And so I took it to an older gentleman at our church that at the time I was going to church, and I asked him to take a look at it to see what he thought about it. And he was like, Matt, this, I think what you're doing here is good, but you're not ready. And I was like, oh, I was very disappointed because I thought I was ready to publish at that point. And he said, honestly, Matt, he said, you're young. You really should put this on the shelf and just let it sit there and come back to this later when you've had some life experience and some things have happened. And that was the best advice anyone ever gave me. I hated it at the time. It made me mad. It made me feel defeated, but I did. And so from that time, I picked it up and rewrote it probably 6 to 10 times. I don't remember how many times, and I kept dwindling it down and trying to simplify it. And this last one was definitely the most simple. And my wife really helped me edit, and she had a background in newspaper writing, and so she knows how to write really concisely. And she helped me because I ramble, and she helped me kind of hone that down. So that's kind of where it began. And I would say if you have an idea for a story, you kind of have to have thick skin, because when you start passing this around to other people, they're going to give you some feedback, but you need that. You want that, because
Right.
it's not going to get where it needs to be if you don't have some critical feedback, and sometimes you just have to be willing to listen to that and know that you're going to be better because of it.
yeah, I think me personally, like, I've always understood constructive criticism, is great, especially at a young age. But I mean, especially now, I know you guys are older than me. I'm the youngest one here. I'm the baby here, but especially with this generation, you can't say anything without getting in trouble nowadays. So
Okay, I have one question. You mentioned in the book about going to the high country of Colorado.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Well, my grandfather had a dude ranch outside of it was Creede, Colorado, actually in the San Luis Valley,
Oh,
and
okay.
he used to pick people up horseback. They would ride the Durango narrow gauge, and they'd go from Durango to Silverton, and he'd pick them up by horseback and take them over to his dude ranch. And so it was back in the day. It was called Sky High Ranch, and I spent a lot of time there growing up as a kid, and probably that would have been part of what I did even today. But my grandfather didn't do all the right things.
Sure.
Yeah, that's, I mean, going through me personally, going through your book and like, Joy, Jim, I'm curious what your opinion on this too is it was very raw. It was very, it was sad, it's one of those while reading, it was one of those books that was just like, I don't want to say it's a fairy tale, but it was just so sad to hear this happen. A lot of the different things with your life. One, I actually wanted to ask you about, because I had to read this twice, but I wanted to ask you about it to go over one more time. There's a part, probably 20 pages in. There was a lighter fluid incident with your dad with the hands. I was so confused reading that. And especially with I have a 3-year-old boy and a 2-year-old daughter. And even actually today, my son's being goofy running around and he wants to help, Baba's over. He grabs her hot tea and he grabs it and it goes all over him. And he's fine, but it I think it more shocked him than burned. But it's I don't know. Do you want to go into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, my dad was really young, and fun fact about my dad, he never learned. He dropped out of school, became a welder, and I'm not sure he could read and write, and I didn't know that till I was much older, and I actually probably about 40, I met him. My family met him for the first time, and that's kind of when I figured out, oh, he doesn't read and write. But he was very young, very immature, and he was a teenager. He was about, I think, 18, 19 when I was a kid, and he knew the trick where you take your hand and you take lighter fluid and you light your hand, and the lighter fluid burns off, but it won't burn your hand if you do it right. So it's not the best idea in the world, but it can be done. So he had shown me that. And and I was, at the time, I was like pre-K, something like that, and then he left it out. He left the lighter fluid and the lighter out because he was like a child. He didn't pick up things after himself, and I came along the next day and like, oh yeah, Dad showed me this last night. I can do that.
Man.
And I tried it, and I can remember, lighting my hand, and about that time going, "Ooh, that's a bad idea," so I panicked, and then I started doing this, which is a bad idea, but that's kind of what you do when you're that age, and so I caught part of my hair on fire, and I had 2nd-degree burns on the hand, and till I was a grown man. My great grandmother could take both of my hands, and she knew which hand I had burned. She could tell by the way they felt. But anyway, that's kind of how that happened. And I remember screaming, and my mom was in the other room, folding laundry or something, and she came running and picked me up, and she was pretty freaked out.
Yeah, I. It's funny the different perspective because of age groups. I have relatives who would have taught me to do that at the same age, and they were from Iowa, from Texas, and it was just a mentality from the older generation, older than my grandfather generation, really my dad, but it just they didn't think about things like that. They didn't think we were allowed to drink water from the garden hose.
Yeah,
We had to go play outside all day.
hmm
Those were the innocuous things that this is the first generation in Americans history where children are raised mostly indoors.
Yeah.
And so from my father's generation and my grandfather, I wasn't allowed in the house most of the day if it was summertime, and but yeah, when I read the story, it's like, oh yeah, I could see my grandpa teaching me to do that,
Hmm. Yeah.
and
Oh,
my grandmother yelling at him, "Oh, Jim, don't teach him to do something stupid like that."
Oh, it's
So
crazy. Like I do crazy stuff with the kids, and I'll have my family members and friends yell at me. When I read that one, I'm like, man, you're playing with fire, like literal fire, not just the saying you're playing with fire. You're playing with fire. So
yeah.
yeah, it's just a different world in people's mind. But I love the book. I thought it was heart wrenching in some areas, obviously, and I love the way you emphasize that you prayed for Yah to give you a father, and He gave you three. And I love the way that was woven into the story of how these men influenced your life, and it was one of your grandfathers that was so
Hmm.
influential in a godly way, that set a course. And I love that in each section of the book you keep challenging people: who will you choose to be, Jacob or Esau? And we forget that. Coming from, for me, the Torah observant worldview is 6 or 7 years old to me, and so it's refreshing because the evangelical Christian side of my history is still very fresh in our minds. Most evangelical Christians avoid the Old Testament
Yeah.
for all the obvious reasons, and I love the way you wove that into your story. It was powerful. It really blessed my heart.
Hmm.
And
Well, thank
and
you.
then and then your transition from, because you talked about how you read Rick Warren's book. I remember reading that when it first
Uh-huh.
came out. I thought, oh, this is great. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait, you got to be super rich and have thousands of people to do this,
Hmm. Hmm.
and live
Yeah.
in Southern California, in
Yeah. That
Saddleback,
helps.
California,
Hmm. So,
where people have a very weird carnal worldview.
yeah.
And no, I loved it. I really identified with it on so many different levels. It was awesome.
Well, thanks.
And your farming, that was a beautiful thing woven into your story too, even from a very young age, how farming was a part of your soul. You felt it in your blood, so to speak. And that really, that was really, because I grew up in the city, in Southern California myself. And so I loved thinking in those terms, because to me, farming and hunting was something people did at the turn of the previous century.
Hmm.
People still didn't live that way, did they?
Hmm.
And you live that way today, right? You kind of run a
Yeah.
ranchette, and
Yeah.
have your own home farm, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. And then make my living working at a tree farm.
Right, right.
And so,
That's so awesome. I love it. I love it.
Joy, did
but
you want to ask anything or?
what I
Yeah,
was gonna.
oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, no, no. I was just going to talk about the Jacob and Esau thing. You know, I really think that y'all gave that to me when I started my last rewrite, and that's when it really. I did some studies on it, and I just, one of the things I had done is it was perplexing, and I knew it was perplexing to a lot of other people about that scripture, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. And I know a lot of people are like,
Mm.
people don't like to talk about that God could hate something. And, that's kind of where that started with me, is I was trying to figure out, why does he hate Esau? And I came to the conclusion that he hates Esau because Esau did what he wanted. He didn't care. He
Mm-hmm.
just lived his life. He was like alpha male, and he's like, I make my own destiny. I make my
Mm-hmm.
own rules, and he had no room for God in his life. But that's all I was gonna say.
I was gonna say the book was so good, and I actually read through all of it in 2 sittings. But being a horse girl at heart, one of the hardest stories was when you hit that girl in the face with a rock for wanting to ride Sugar, because
Oh,
I felt like I was that little girl, and I was waiting for you to get some sort of punishment or a
Yeah.
whipping, and it didn't happen.
Mhm.
And so that was very difficult for me.
Yes, yes, I bet
Why
so.
do
And
you suppose you were not disciplined for that? Like,
I think mostly because my mother was working a lot, not there, and then I was in the care of a step grandpa who was a drunk alcoholic, And then my grandmother, and she wasn't known for being a disciplinarian. I think she kind of tried, and she didn't try that hard. But yes, I should have been disciplined for that.
Well, I was
Looking
gonna
back
ask-
now, do you like if that was one of your children or
Oh, yeah.
grandchildren?
Yeah, it would have been a swift action on my part.
I think we should have your wife come in the background now and smack you upside the head. For doing
maybe,
that.
maybe. Yeah.
Can you ask
Yeah.
her?
Yeah. And
Just so we complete the circle, so Joy can feel better. I'll
Yes.
feel better. Will think we're crazy.
that's right. Well, and I do apologize if she ever reads the book. I am very sorry. I was very dumb and young and had a bad temper. So,
But you were protective of Sugar, and I can see that. She sounded like an amazing little pony.
yeah,
Yeah. That's that was a powerful part of the story as well. For me, I identified with your temper issue because I grew up in a home where anger and inappropriate expressions of anger was our lifestyle, and took me years to really lay that down and quit acting that way. So
yeah. Well, my great grandfather Carl Chafin, who I called my grandpa in the book, and I spent a lot of time with him, and he helped break me of that, because I said every cuss word in the book, like 5-6 years old. I was already pretty good at cussing and doing all those things, and he would pull me aside and he would say, "Hey, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna be patient. We're gonna wait. We're gonna calm down." And he was very calm like that, very soft spoken, and it was exactly what I needed. As God intervening in my life and giving me exactly what I needed. And I think He does that. And I think that's two things that I wanted to come through in the book is that God answered prayer in my life, that in a powerful way, and that there are certain prayers you can pray, He's going to answer them. And one of them is, if you are seeking Him, you're going to find Him. Scripture says that.
right,
And I believe that if you're fatherless and you ask for a father, He's going to send the fatherless child somebody in their life.
right.
And then it's up to you. At that point, you can either get rescued. It's like the old joke about where were you? And God's like, I sent the lifeboat to you and you wouldn't get in, and, that kind of
Helicopter.
thing. And yeah. And so people come into our lives and we can either listen to them or we reject it. And so, and that comes back to that Jacob and Esau thing.
Amen.
So,
Yeah, definitely. It's like that. What is it? Psalms 90 or 91. It talks about, I think it's 91, where it talks about God saving, right? And one of the illustrations he gives, it's like a mother hen with her wings out to protect her children. You got to run, you got to get there, but once you're there, you're covered. But you got to go there for that protection.
Right.
I kind of want to piggyback off kind of what Joy said. One thing I really appreciate about your book, man, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier how raw it is, meaning you mention your mistakes and you mention everyone else's mistakes and how you learn from that. And it's interesting too, because it made me really think of the Torah, because, Moses is given credit for writing the Torah. So under that presupposition, he wrote it. He says how he screwed up, right? Even with the whole speak to the rock, well, I'm going to strike the rock. He lists his mistakes. He's very raw what happened with his brothers and sisters, just as you were very raw with how you mentioned Carl and Hank.
yeah.
And, for you guys to understand the joke, you're going to have to go back and buy book on Amazon right here. Please Becoming Jacob. You will understand the whole joke who Hank truly is.
Yeah.
So do a quick little
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the pictures of everybody's names too, so you could actually see who all these people are. So that was nice too.
Right.
Yes, the pictures within the book, that was very nice, because now I get to put a face to who is doing these actions. So when with all the little stories, I don't want to spoil too much, but it was very nice. I'm a kid inside, so whenever I get pictures, it's Like that's why the Bible's so hard to read, just because there's no pictures.
Yeah.
Like the King James
It does
version.
help. No.
I love the book, Matt. I absolutely loved it. I would encourage. I want to repost it on my social media. Encourage people to read it because your journey is very relatable. It's shared so honestly and so beautifully. And having talked to you because you interviewed me at one point, and I think you interviewed some guy from Milwaukee or something. I forgot his name now, but
Yeah.
but you just it just shines through the real heart of who you are, and not only becoming Jacob, choosing to be Jacob over Esau, but then also choosing to become Yitzrael, to be the one who pursues God at all costs. And my dog's going crazy out here. Sorry, I gotta go tend to him in a second. But I love it, Matt. It was really it was warming and full, and I love the way you shared those aspects about your family. It was really cool. Thank you for
Thank
putting
you.
that to paper. That's really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think with me, one thing I really appreciate is not to your degree, but I definitely I grew up with a father that he I truly feel in my mind, just kind of connecting some dots. My dad was in a previous marriage, and when he got divorced, he lost my sister, my half sister, to his mom. My dad got remarried, had me, but I always felt like I was never good enough. I like almost like he only got remarried and had a child so that he can go in front of the judge to be like, well, look, I'm more put together than my ex-wife. I should get my daughter. Like it was, you know what I mean? It was almost like this. He and I have had many struggles, and I love reading that book. It almost was like, wow, like I'm not the only one that had a really crappy childhood. It's almost like Matt, we can now bond over this. Like I think it puts it in more of a realistic or relatable in a relatable sense to where if someone is struggling going through some family stuff, they can read your book and see what has happened, what happened to you, things that you have done. And no, it's not the end of the world. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And they'll be able to look on your YouTube channel, your TikTok channel, see what you guys do on Sabbath Lounge, your spiritual journey, your understanding of the Bible, how every day you want to be more like Messiah. And I think it definitely calls to that, to where, with me, I still harbor a lot of that, anger and, frustration and sadness within me. And sometimes it is hard to let it out. But, when I see someone else struggle, when I struggled, you know what I mean? It almost puts like, wow, we both went through that together. We both had dads that weren't the best. And it's like a connection that you and I have now.
Yeah.
It puts me like, I know what you went through, and you went through worse than me, So it was nice. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it was nice seeing this, just, because I have also kind of went through some stuff where I initially I had to get the police involved to have my parents not associate with me, my wife, and my children, just because it was going to get so bad. And now I have like no one from my side of the family, only my aunt and my uncle. And yeah, it gets lonely, but to know that, hey, there is another brother out there, it's like I can look up to you, and I really appreciate
Agreed.
you putting all that out there.
Yeah.
It's more of it's like an inspiration for me.
And family's not always
thank
who
you.
you're related to, but who you
That's
relate
right.
to.
That's right.
And I found that in my life many times over, and so I just love the fact that those people who touched you and reached you restored your heart on every turn and brought you to a place to really humbly submit yourself to Yah. That's beautiful. I loved it.
Well, and
I've got to run. I hate to leave. My dog's going crazy. One dog's in heat, and the other one wants to go say hi to her.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Don't you already have a litter going on right now?
I do, and I do. I've got 3 more now. Out of 11, we've got 3 left, and I don't want another one.
Oh,
In 2 months.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Will, thank you for hosting this. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Oh, no problem, brother.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Enjoy. I wish we had more time to talk. I think you've got incredible stories. I look forward to hearing more from you. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah. So, all right. Well, shalom, my friends. Baruch
All right.
Hashem, Yeshua HaMashiach. Bless his name, Jesus, our Messiah.
Amen.
Thank you guys. You encourage me so much. And it's good to see that in this digital universe, I have family all across
That's
the
right.
country.
That's right.
Yep. That's right.
That blesses my heart.
All
All right.
right.
Lord bless you. I'll catch up the rest of
Thank
the
you.
interview later.
Okay.
See you, brother. All right. Joy, I cut you off. I apologize. Was there anything else? 'Cause I know you.
Yeah, I was gonna say what really another thing that I thought a lot about, actually I've been meditating it on many days, is your prayer for that Yah would send you a father. And I think, and it made me think about my life. Speaking of fathers, I grew up with a very violent father, and it never occurred to me to ever pray for another one. I just knew that I didn't want any. And that really that upbringing influenced me and how I viewed Yah. And I always put what I went through, that he was the same way, that my heavenly father was the same. And so I had a very warped view of that. So in my mind, my heavenly father was always angry, was always ready to punish me, was always ready to make me suffer in some way. So that has been a huge struggle in my life. And I guess I want to say, I find it so fascinating how we all work within the body, where I find it, like, speaking of like admiring, like I admire that even at a young age you knew you needed a godly father, where in my mind I didn't want any. So but what I wanted was truth. So I think that all of us, we have these life prayers, I guess, that this inside thing that we desire above all else. And I think that's different for everybody, but mine was always, I just wanted to know the truth. And Yah has definitely answered that, as far as he is not like my earthly father. And that took a really long time for me to come to that place. But I just want to say, it had never occurred to me before that there could be somebody else that would actually pray for a godly father. I don't know. I just found that really mind blowing and amazing. And it's amazing how he works through us too at the same time, like in different ways. And
Hmm.
it's such a blessing to learn that about each other.
Yeah. Well, and I have to give my great grandmother Hank credit for that. And I didn't even know that until I was talking to some other relative, and she told me that. And it was actually my foster mom, and she's my mom, Jill Mowdy. I think she told me that Hank had told her when the first time I left, and when my mom got divorced, she told me that I should start praying that God would send me a dad.
Mm,
And so I did. I listened. I believed everything my grandmother said, and I
yeah.
did it. And
Yeah.
but she planted that seed, and I think that's the other thing is, if you're a grandparent, be active in your grandchild's life. You can
Yeah.
make a difference. And if you just sit back and go, well, I can't do anything. My kids are going to be kids, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and don't
Yeah.
watch the train wreck and don't do
Yeah.
anything. Be an influence. Get your hands dirty. Get involved in their life, be there for the kid, even if your own child hates you and doesn't want anything to do with you for whatever reason. Get involved in that grandchild's life and
Yeah.
plant seeds. These seeds of the kingdom, they reap. Down the seeds are sown early and they get reaped way down the line, and you
Yeah.
just never know the impact you could make, and you got to do something.
Right. Right. But
And then
are we ready for? Oh, go ahead.
the other thing that made me think of is, I think people need to tell their faith stories to their children and figure out, how
Mhm.
you do that, because that's important. I think our kids need to understand, and it's important, I think, for everybody to have a way to tell their journey, their faith journey to their family, especially their own children.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I just want to say this real quick, Joy, and then you can go ahead.
Oh.
Um, that is so important. I feel like too. I had so many emotions when I was reading your book, Matt, and it's when Jim or Joy are bringing up something, it just kind of like re-hits me. You actually here. Let me read this because this was from I think page 18. Real quick, can you guys still see me?
I can
Yes.
see him.
Did you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Oh shoot, where is it? It was where was it? There's a quote. Here it is. Okay. And this is this is the quote. A good father doesn't. And this is from Becoming Jacob, just so everyone knows. So again, please check this out to get the whole message of it. A good father doesn't tear down his kids. He is patient, loving, and kind to them. He seeks their best interests and strives to drive out fear, worry, and doubt. He builds confidence in his children. I thought that was such a powerful thing. And not only that, but also like preparing your children. So kind of like what you were saying, and this is, my father and I, we've never had conversations. He never taught me how to ride a bike, to throw a baseball. I had to kind of learn everything. And I remember I got teased because I didn't learn how to ride bikes until I think I was like 13, 14. And, everyone always teased me, and I was,
I bet.
it's you can't ride a bike. Like he never did anything with me. So it's like I just had my mom, but she was like, go ask your dad. It's like, well, he doesn't like me, so what am I supposed to do? But being real with your children, as in explain to them a lot of like your failures, what you've learned in life. And I think just to be honest with them of, hey, like I did it this way, it wasn't good, or vice versa, whatever, just so your children can also learn. I think that is a great, idea and message to, because what is a father at the end of the day? A father's supposed to be a leader to lead your children to go in the right direction. And with the absence of that, the children that you're bringing up, we sadly see in this day and age, where we don't know what genders we are, and the fathers are absent in children's lives. And so then what do? They turn to the streets, and they turn to gangs, and they turn to violence and killings. And so it's so important. So, and kind of what Jim brought up, we're always asking the question, do we want to be like Jacob, or do we want to be like Esau? Because we have that choice every single day when we wake up and get out of bed. Who do we want to be more like? So I'm sorry, Joy. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, that was good. That quote, I remember reading that quote as well, and that stuck out to me too. That it was wonderful, and that is very absolutely true. So I have some questions.
Okay.
Well, the first one was, you kind of touched on this earlier. Tell us about so I said I wanted to know about the moment you knew you had to write this book, and when you had spoke earlier about you were a school teacher, I think you had said. Were there students that you were teaching that prompted this, or was it something outside of that? Like, was it just that time period that it struck you, or did something happen in particular that you were like, I had to do this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I in my teaching career, yes, I encountered many, and most of the children I encountered were, either from broken homes, and a lot of times absent father or a stepfather, and the blended family kind of thing. And I really think just this, I'll put it on my heart to do. And I didn't understand it at the time. I wasn't writing Becoming Jacob. I was writing my story and at some point, I think it was therapy, step one. I had to like flesh it all out. And there was a lot of, for lack of a better term, just bad stuff, that, anger and resentment and, things I needed to get rid of that I was carrying. And that writing process kind of helped me do that. And so he had me do that, and I think that's why, as I wrote, I would come to these people in my story, and I'd try to look them up on the internet and call them and try to figure out who this person was, and their involvement and how they were connected to me. And then one time we did a big trip. We went out west, and on our way out west, my real dad lived in Midland, Odessa, and my kids had never met him, and my wife had never met him. And at this point, I had kids like 13,
Mm.
7, and maybe 4 or 5. And so we went out there and sat down with him, and they met him for the first time, and that was an emotional experience. And his seeing his mother, and which was my nanny, in the book. But anyway, that I don't know if that makes sense, but it kind of began a journey of healing that I think I had to go on. Just kind of like you were talking about, Will. If we don't deal with the baggage, if we don't deal with the stuff in our past, we're bound to repeat it. And I saw that in people that I've talked to through the years, and so many people that have, like I call it it's a poverty of spirit and a flesh, an actual physical poverty. And a lot of people have both. And if you don't work through that, and the bad parenting or whatever happened to you as a kid, because let's face it, most of us, something happened, unless you grew up in this perfect family. And some people, my wife was kind of like that. She came out pretty good, but not everybody's like that. And you need to really work through that, or you're bound to repeat the mistakes of your father. I mean, the Bible talks about, that. And unless you break those generational curses and those cycles and habits and behaviors, you end up doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's that saying where if you don't learn history, history's going to repeat itself.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I feel like if every generation were to be honest, like you're honest, I'm really curious what your kids and grandkids think of this book, and I hope they can appreciate just how like real and honest you are being, to not judge you on the pros and cons or what you went through, but just how honest you have been. Um, if every generation was like this, the world would be so much better, because if we were able to learn the faults of what has happened to each previous generation and we got better and better and better, I mean, every generation would be almost flawless then. By we like if we go all the way back from Adam and Eve and we learned like, hey, let's just follow God's laws. We don't do this. We don't do that. We like how we treat people. Even from not everything that I know is listed in the Torah and stuff like that, but just how we treat people, how we raise people, how to be a father, how to be a mother, the responsibilities of a husband, wife, mother, father. And if everyone took those situations serious instead of kind of doing their own thing, but that it's really important to teach those lessons and have those lessons written down to learn from it, to educate, society would be so much better. Still it would not be perfect, because we ultimately we need the Messiah to return to bring the kingdom to us, and only then can it be perfect. But it can be pretty darn close to it if everyone actually learned the mistakes
Totally
that
agree.
their
Well,
forefathers made.
and that's kind of how the Torah is actually written. It's all the warts and everything. It told you the good and the bad, and
Yeah.
it didn't hide it. And no other history does that, because if you're the Romans or the Egyptians, and frankly the United States, and the story we tell of the Native Americans, we tell that a certain way, and most people do. Most people don't tell their, especially societies and history, people tend to only tell the good parts, and they don't tell you the bad part.
Yeah.
But the Torah, even like what um, what he was saying a minute ago about Moses. You know, Moses told the bad about himself, which is very unusual
Yeah.
in literature, not unusual for Moses.
So the next question, what challenges did you face writing this book and how did you overcome those? Did you have challenges that you needed to
Yeah,
tackle? Or...
yeah. I pretty terrible at writing, but you know, when I was in high school, I had a teacher that saw something in my writing, and that was the spark where I kind of went, oh, maybe I could do this. And so she planted a seed that other
Mm,
people watered. An English teacher I had when I was in college, Emily Limley, she also saw something and prompted me and told me I should write more. And but you know, I don't know. It was just kind of this journey. It was difficult because my grammar was not very good, and you know, the first time I wrote it, I had all this, you know, I mixed pronouns and not pronouns but tenses, and so
mm,
I did that all the time. I was all over the place, and just grammar is atrocious. And people at first had a hard time. They're like, "Yeah, Matt." Then I know they were like, "Oh my gosh, Matt has got a lot to learn here. I don't know if he's going to be able to do this." And but and they were kind. And there was a teacher that I taught with, Allison Laurel, and I asked her to help me do some edits. And as soon as the book was published, I reached out to Allison. I said, Allison, I'm sorry I took so much of your time years ago. Thank you so much for helping me. I finally did it, and you know, she was super excited for me. But you know, it took a lot of hands and a lot of eyes that helped me refine it, and mostly it took, I would say, I don't know if all that was not good, but I was headed in the wrong direction with what I thought was this amazing story, an amazing book that changed title. And originally, it was going to be called Mustang Smoke,
mm,
and I changed it, and it just kept evolving. And you know, I think that it was Yah's hand all along, and it was Yah's timing. It came out at
mhm.
just when it was supposed to.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
awesome.
if that makes sense, but
No, no, it does. It does.
Real,
Um, oh, go
real
ahead.
quick. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to
one
interrupt.
other thing, I couldn't have done it without my wife. She
There
she
we go.
she she I think she may be looking around now. But you know, she's sat with me for hours and hours, going back through it and reading it, and helping me you know, push through and refine it and make it better. So
It,
that was
it's it,
helpful.
it, Matt, it's funny you say that because I had an interview with Stand on Scripture, and his name was Taylor, and it was funny because my wife, you know, she takes the kids and she either goes to Chick-fil-A or to a park, or you know, just she gets them out of the house, and I did the same thing. I had to say I thank my wife for whenever I do these debates or interviews or whatever YouTube thing for taking the kids out, you know. So you're gonna get brownie points, trust me.
Yeah.
But
Good.
I'm you know, we're on YouTube and TikTok. People are coming in and out, so I just want to show real quick, guys. I'm joined by Matt Cook from Sabbath Lounge and Joy Brock. We are talking about becoming Jacob. This is Sabbath Lounge's own Matt Cook's first book. It's a story of his life, and it talks a lot about what kind of person, father, husband do you want to be? Do you want to be like Jacob? Do you want to be like Esau? And actually, hold on, Matt, real quick. Do that again. There it is. Now, hey, actually, really quick, do you mind reading the back of that? Just because we did not get any hard copies.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you got it before it was even released. So
That's right. But I still need a
this is
hard copy.
yeah, this is a picture of me. My mom had a '79 Ford Pinto, and my great grandmother Hank firmly believed that every young boy that went to church had to have a new suit. And
Mhm.
we were poor, but she made sure that I had a new suit, and so I'd probably just gotten this suit, just gotten back from church, and I'm pretty happy. About third or fourth grade there, in front of the '79 Ford Pinto. So,
Love
but
it.
on the back it says, in the biblical narrative, Esau was the rightful heir to his father's fortune, yet he was not interested in his father's way. Trampling on his lineage by selling his birthright for food, Jacob was about his father's business. He adopted the practices of his father, Isaac, and his grandfather Abraham. My mother was the product of a broken home. Her parents followed the way of Esau. My grandparents' divorce created a ripple that lasted for generations. That ripple stopped with me. Through many helpers, Yahuwah helped me turn my lineage from Esau to Jacob.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
And on a side note, one of the things that I want to do with it is I'm doing like a first fruits offering with the book, and so the place that I work also has a bookstore, and they're going to be selling it there. And they asked me early on, they're like, we want to sell it, but we want the money to go to some charity. What do you want it to go to? And so I thought about it a lot, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set up a. Right now, it'll be ran through a local school foundation, but I'm trying to do like a scholarship for, and I'm going to call it the Becoming Jacob Scholarship for some young man, some young woman that has something similar, and they're going to have to write an essay, and they'll have to write an essay about how, for whatever reason, their dad has dropped out of their life, and some other man kind of took on the father role for them and helped them. And so that's my plan. That's what I want to do. I don't know how much the scholarship or whatever, but I'm just going to give it away at our local high school. And so anyway, that's part of what I want to do with it, and try to help someone else, because somebody did that for me, and I had a donor that helped me go to college, and one time, I ended up at a children's home, and the president of this children's home, somebody had reached out to him, and his name was Floyd, and they said, Floyd, we want to give some young man or young woman some financial assistance. We want to give them like $2,000 a semester to go to school. And he's like, great, I got the perfect person. And so he told them about me, and then they said, we'd like to meet him, but we don't want him to know that who we are. And so I flew down with him. It was at a church in Austin, and I went to church there at that congregation, and I met people, and I met the person, shook their hand, but I don't know who they were, and that's the way they wanted it to be. And so since then, I've always had wanted to give back to some other people the way people help me.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Awesome.
Is there a way for people to help with that donation?
Right now, if you know how to set up a foundation, that would be, the biggest help that I could do. But I don't have a link or anything like that yet, but
Okay.
it will be coming.
So yeah, anyone watching, if you guys want to help Matt out in any way, shape, or possible, please just follow Sabbath Lounge either on YouTube, TikTok. Reach out to him. If you want to help out in any way, shape, or form, let him know, and you guys can definitely get in touch with that.
Yeah, you can email me at matt@becomingjacob.com. And then, Joy, did you have other questions?
Oh, I have one more. I wrote, how did the process of writing impact your perspective of certain events? In other words, how did the act of writing influence your understanding of past experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely therapeutic and helped me work it out, and also helped me realize that the way I told it as a child and how I saw myself wasn't necessarily how everyone else saw myself. And it's easy to be like a legend in your own mind, I guess. But there were definitely times in my life when I thought I was pretty tough, pretty rotten in some ways, and but later in life, I had my family meet my stepdad Glenn, who I talk about in the story. So that was part of that journey. When I was writing the chapter about Glenn, I was like, I got to touch base with Glenn. And so, y'all, and I think y'all did that. He had me, as I talked about people, he's like, you need to go talk to him, reach out. And so I did. and I ended up meeting him one day at a little Dairy Queen in Idalou, Texas. We're about the same place where I remembered him in my life, and he still lived in that area. And he was so thrilled to see
Hmm.
me and see my family. And I was surprised. It it even is emotional today talking about it. I was surprised at his reaction, seeing my family, and he always thought I was very respectful, and I didn't see myself that way,
Hmm.
in my mind, but yeah, definitely I realized too that a child's perspective, you kind of, and I told that to Deborah Publishing. I want to thank Sarah Williams at Deborah for giving me the opportunity to tell my story, and that she listened and allowed me to do that. And but she helped me capture that and communicate that. But anyway, with Glenn, that was I was just surprised at his reaction, and I realized that everyone's perspective is different. And so, like, Glenn interacted with me, and he had a perspective of me that I didn't have. And I
Hmm.
also learned stories that I didn't know. Like, I didn't know about the story of my grandpa, Papa Bill, shooting a dog next to me in a kiddie pool. I
Yeah,
didn't know
those
that.
were hard. That was
Yeah.
hard to read too.
Yeah. I didn't know that till I was much older. And I think that's something that you block out, when it happens. It's
Mhm.
trauma. And I didn't realize that, that had even happened until my great grandmother, started telling me that story, and which was his wife at the time, Granny Marge, in the book. And I know, and that's why I put a family tree in there, because it gets confusing when I start throwing out all these names, and you have to have a visual reference.
I did like the family tree. That was a nice touch.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, that was. I have to give credit to Sarah. That was her idea, because I think when she read it, she was like, "I don't understand who's who," and that helped her. So,
Yeah.
but growing up, I had that story. Anytime I introduce myself, and somebody's like, "Well, tell me about you," and if I start talking about my family, they're like, "Wait a minute, who'd you say was your grandpa?" Okay, it was always hard to explain it. And I think for me, one of the biggest turning points in my life was meeting my best friend, Gabe, on the school bus. And we rode the same school bus, and that conversation really turned my life around. My grandfather Carl had done a lot, but I wasn't there. And when I met Gabe's dad, Alvin, that really pushed me over the edge. And when Gabe and I sit down and start talking, it was just like, it was the most amazing thing either one of us had ever experienced, because we both were farm kids. We both played with toy tractors, and we both talked like that. We were like the little kid that you may have seen in TikTok that's talking about tractors, and he looks like a little grandpa, and he knows all this stuff. That's exactly the way we were. And when we start talking, he's like, "I like tractors." I was like, "Me too. I like tractors." We just, like, everything he said, that was like what I did. And um, and uh, but that was definitely a huge moment, and I can't thank that the Mowdy family enough. They went out of their way. They drove miles and miles to take me to church, and that they were pretty amazing.
Are you still friends with them now? Like, you were in
Yeah.
contact with them? And oh,
Yeah,
that's,
so
yeah.
we'll do a family reunion with them ever so often, and all the brothers and sisters and all of our children now, we try to get together as often as we can, and we try to do it once a year, and it's a lot of fun.
Good. So, everyone watching, Matt, before we end, is there? I know you shouted out a little bit of your publishing company, or the publishing company that did this. You shouted out your wife, the most important person behind this, right?
Yeah.
Is there anyone else you want to give a quick little shout out to?
Well, just everybody that has had an impact and been a part of my life. There's a long list. My my story today is I feel extremely blessed to have three grown children that are now all two are married and one has a child and the other one is about to get married here in April or really soon. And I just love them, dearly. And, they became, they're everything. And, they are worth far more than gold and silver and, possessions and jobs and retirement and all these things we worry about. And I'll tell you one thing, one story, and I didn't put this in the book, but my first job out of college, I was working as a manager intern for a rent car company, and I was gonna, I had to start off at the bottom, and I was gonna move my way up to branch manager and have a company car and all this, which I did at some point. But early on, I was sitting in this in my little cubicle renting this car to this guy who had been the CEO of an oil and gas company, and I'd picked him up at his house, and he lived on a really nice, golf course resort thing. And I saw where he lived, and I was like, wow, that's pretty nice. And when he got to my cubicle, I had a picture of my newborn son behind me, which is Noah. And he was like, "Is that your son?" And I said, "Yes, yes, sir, it is." And he said, "Matt, I'm going to tell you right now that this job is not worth not being with him." And he said, "You saw where I lived and you saw that I've done well with my life." But he said, "My kids hate me today. They don't want anything to do with me. When they were young, I worked all the time and all I cared about was making money. And today they like to take my money, but they don't want me. They don't want any part of me." And he said, "Matt, I'm going to tell you right now, I would trade all of my wealth and be poor if it meant I could have the love and attention of my children. I would trade it now." And he said, he was just like, I mean, and you could tell he meant this. He wasn't, and I think that was a God moment for me, and woke me up to what I was doing. I was working like 80 hours a week, and I wasn't home very much. And that was what I needed to hear, and it woke me up, and I was like, yeah. And then about a year later, it took me like a year and a half to get there, but he planted the seed. And I just think about that guy often. I don't even know his name, but he spoke. God spoke through him to me directly to my heart. From his heart to my heart, and I knew he was serious about him.
Wow, that's
Anyway.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you for that. We got a little tidbit here that's not part of the book. That's definitely cool. But guys, again, that was Matt Cook from Sabbath Lounge. Here on my, what is this, left over here, we have the book. It's available. As Matt said, it's on Amazon. It is on Barnes and Nobles. I'll bring up Matt. Oops, took him off. There we go.
There you go.
Third time's a charm. There's the book right there. Matt has one again, ordering all of them for himself, but now he is finally selling them out so everyone can have one. So, real quick.
And also, the one thing I would encourage people to do, if you don't mind, if you read it, review it. You can review it in Google Read or something, and Barnes and Noble and Amazon. Those are probably the three biggest places. But a review always helps. Someone else to come along. And if you feel so moved, I appreciate anybody just saying, "Hey, I read this book," and putting it on their social media. And my prayer is, first off, I should have said this at the very beginning, that all the glory and honor and esteem goes to Yah, first and foremost. That's who did it. It wasn't me. It wasn't anybody in my family. It was him, and he gets all the glory and credit.
Amen.
Yeah.
So, with that, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Joy, thank you so much for also coming on too with your questions and input on this. Matt, you have a lot of friends, and we are all supporting you so much. So,
Yes.
All right. Well, it was an honor. I really appreciate you guys being willing to spend some time with me this evening and allow me to talk about it. And just thank you for being my friends and part of my circle. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. All right. And guys, please check them out. Give them a like, follow. Please check out the book. It's a great read. And with that, shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.